involving our best player, Lauri Markkanen. Lauri's great. Everyone in the world's calling me right now. What is Lauri like? Lauri's great. He's 7'1". He can shoot the three. He can put it on the deck. He's tough as hell. He battles. He's a total pro. Lauri's awesome. And for that reason, it's hard to believe that the Jazz should trade Lauri Markkanen. And the fact that Lauri seemingly is interested, of all reports I have, in signing an extension. The difficulty is that extension can't come until August because it's matching to the day in which he signed his deal, which was late, moving out of Chicago to Cleveland originally. So that's the deal. Why would we trade Lauri Markkanen? Is first answer would be that we've gone big game hunting. And we're going to go back to Danny Ainge's big game hunting comment here in a minute to hear it and really listen to the whole thing, because what happened in that quote is Danny Ainge gave a soundbite that got grabbed nationally and everyone's had great fun with, but no one heard the full minute. And he says two things in it that are really, really interesting. One that leads you to believe that maybe they could trade Lauri Markkanen, and the other that leads you to believe that maybe they wouldn't trade Lauri Markkanen. So we'll dig into it. But why would the Jazz possibly trade Lauri Markkanen? There are two reasons why the Jazz would possibly trade Lauri Markkanen right now. None of them involve his ability. Let's be perfectly clear about that. None of them involve his ability. He is awesome. He is a fabulous player. He's a top 30 player in the NBA, working toward being a top 20 player in the NBA. He has a skill set that only Kevin Durant can match at 7'1". He is awesome. The reason you would possibly trade Lauri Markkanen is two factors are playing in that direction. One is the Jazz have tried to go big game hunting, whether it was Kristaps Porzingis or Drew Holiday or Damian Lillard or some of the players they went after at the trade deadline or Mikal Bridges, and they haven't got it done yet. And suddenly that might back up your timeline a little bit. That all of a sudden, because you're not getting these things done, and suddenly you're not able to you have not been able to make the jump you expected to, you actually have to pull back a little bit. And the right move at that point is to then move Lauri, pick up more assets, and almost restart the rebuild.
And a good afternoon to all of you out there, from Texas to Oregon to Serbia and everywhere in between. We got some Sacktown in here. I know that for sure. It's the King's Court. How the hell are we doing today, Ryan? In Sacktown with you. I do have to start the show off with this, just to be completely transparent. Everybody knows, and if you're new here, Tuesdays are Jerry Reynolds Tuesdays usually. Unfortunately, I got a call from Jerry about an hour 15 ago, and he let me know he wasn't going to be able to make it. Everything is fine. Nothing to worry about, but he will be back next Tuesday, so we'll have to hold over our questions. And, he's probably a little tired of having that same conversation about the Kings at the beginning there. You heard from Locked On Jazz talking about Lauri Markkanen, a name that has come up. Patrick, off work early. That a boy. Love it. Patrick, I thought you were off this week. Aren't you off in general? Anyways, getting back to what I was saying. Lauri Markkanen, the cost it would cost for the Kings to maybe acquire a player like that. But what I found interesting in that soundbite was actually the back end of it, about the big game hunting, quote unquote, right? The Kings have had some same troubles, and I think that they also left off one thing about why you would trade Lauri Markkanen. It's obviously to do the Kings a favor, right? Danny Ainge wants the Kings to do well. He's been in Sacramento before. He's played some tennis with Napes and Jerry Reynolds. No, that's not really a reason. Wishful thinking there. But the Golden State Warriors seem to be a team that is taking their chips out of the Paul George basket and pushing them right to the middle of the table with Lauri Markkanen. Kings involved, as I said, in those talks reportedly. However, you know it's going to include Keegan Murray. That is what the report says, and that's not surprising at all. But I do have to remind you, you have a general manager that is willing to take risks. And I know that sounds funny because it feels like right now the Kings are being conservative. They're sitting back. They have not signed anybody in free agency, right? Well, you never know what's going on in those offices. Grant made that point on his show at 5 o'clock yesterday. Speaking of Grant, he will be back at 5 o'clock today, and then at 8 o'clock, him and I are going to reunite for the first time this week. We're going to do our Tuesday night sports scrum, have some fun with that. I do have to ask really quick, Adam, how was the music? Was that a little bit better for you? Did it not feel like the bowl was being passed around? Like I said, we're tweaking with the bump ins and the countdowns. That one's a little bit better. The ones that I really like visually, the music isn't there. So come on, AI, pick up your game. Show me something. But anyways, we'll be back at 8 o'clock tonight. That will be a lot of fun. By the way, a lot of talk here in the Kings Court about sports cards. BJ, seems like every time he comes in here, he's showing us a card, talking about a card. Well, Imran from True Sports Cards and Collectibles. In fact, you've probably heard him on 1140. They have a Saturday show. He is going to be here on Friday. So if you are ready to get your sports card fix in, we're going to talk about the market, what makes a card valuable, what doesn't, kind of that reverse deduction that BJ was talking about, because there's only a certain amount of cards out there. And if most of that card has been graded, and maybe you have one that hasn't, you can kind of do the backwards math and figure out what that card may be worth. There's a whole world of things. That world is really picking up, and the collectibles world is picking up as well. I was talking with somebody else that's in the business. Did you know there is a huge market for unused Super Bowl tickets? I found that super interesting. Not used ticket stubs, unused tickets, paper tickets. People collect every single one. Some are more valuable than others, depending on the design, the game, but I found that pretty cool. So whatever your questions may be, we will get to any of those on Friday. I got a lot of show for you. Devin Carter introduced to the media here in Sacramento. We're going to listen to some audio from his introduction. One thing's pretty clear. This kid's got a quiet confidence about him. He really does. He is confident in his game. Sometimes you see rookies step up to that podium and have that, oh crap, I'm in the NBA moment. Didn't look like that for him. It looked like he was supposed to be there. And there's a difference between being there and supposed to being there. So anyways, a lot to run down. By the way, I want to talk about the River Cats game last night. I told you guys I was headed out to Rayleigh Field for a boys' night last night. A lot of fun. Luckily, we were on the side of the ballpark that was getting shade. Thank goodness. It was a hot night. But the River Cats almost got no hit. It was incredible. They didn't get their first hit until I think it was with 2 outs or no, 1 out in the 9th inning. That's when they got their first hit. But the other team, the Reno Aces, they pulled the guy that had the no-hitter. They tried to do a staff one. So I don't want to break that game down, but what I do want to talk about is what this transition is going to look like with the Oakland A's coming in to Sutter Health Park. There is a lot, and I get it is a nice minor league ballpark. It really is. Scenery, beautiful. You got the bridge in the background. You've got some buildings, awesome trees, but there are some major limitations to that park that they are going to have to address before the A's roll in here. And who is that on? Is that on the A's? Is that on Sacramento and Vivek? Many don't know this. Vivek owns the River Cats. So anyways, much to talk about. I haven't even looked at the chat yet. Unfortunately, again, like I said at the top, Jerry Reynolds is not going to be joining us today. Something came up. Everything is good and fine with him. But we will be back to our normal schedule next Tuesday with Jerry. I wish, Bane. I know I did get to talk to him briefly, and we talked about some of the moves right now that are on the table for the Kings. And we had an interesting show here yesterday. If you didn't tune in, go check it out. The audio is up on the Kings Court. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, etc. But I kind of had a shift in my mentality. And so Jerry and I had a quick chat just about the trade targets. And, the one that made the most sense to us seems to be the furthest away because the Kings have been chasing him for so long. And we kind of talked about something Dennis has brought up more towards the Levine conversation. Dennis was really curious around how much leverage the Kings had with a team like Chicago, who cannot give away Zach LaVine right now. Well, vice versa. How much leverage, and the player we're talking about is Kyle Kuzma, by the way, but how much leverage does Washington have against the Kings? I mean, the Kings have been chasing him for many years now. I mean, the Kings are kind of throwing Hail Marys in some fans' opinions. I don't think we're quite there, but I have another option again that I want to get to, and it's a shift in thinking. And so that's why the quote unquote big game hunting quote from Locked On Jazz really caught my attention. Adam, time for chicken and dumplings. Yeah, Jerry loves his chicken and dumplings. Damn, maybe if we had those made, he would have been in today. He felt really bad about not being able to make it. But again, life happens. Life comes first foremost. What's Alberto? What's the word on the street? Kings any closer to landing anybody? I have not heard anything outside of what's been reported. Just that multiple options are on the table at this point. The interesting thing with Markkanen, which they were just talking about on the bump in, was the fact that is he eligible for a sign-in trade? Yes, but not till August. So I guess the overwhelming question that comes to mind for me is, how you feeling, Kings fan? If this is, let's say we make one more little move, and let's say the Lauri trade completely off the table. Let's act like it's not there. Let's say the Kings just make one more little move. How are you feeling about rolling back into the season with this team? And then one of the big things I wanted to ask Jerry as well is, if you're Mike Brown and you've predominantly had the same roster, or at least the same core for the last 3 years, and you've gone through a few different iterations offensively. You've gone from run and gun, highest rated offensive rating in the history. Yes, the history of the NBA, to last year kind of stalling out, too many finishers, not enough creators, to then the end of the season, defense creating offense. How much command do you have of the room with your players, asking them to maybe play a little bit different of a style? Do you lose trust in the vision if you keep shifting too many times? I don't think so, because the entire layout of what the Kings do fundamentally has not changed, because Mike Brown always preaching defense, defense, defense. Even when the Kings were giving up 125, 130 points, defense, that's what we've got to do. So the preaching side of it doesn't change, but the actual application of what you're doing on the court, how does that affect your players? Can you get the players all in and on board? Because again, 3 years, if this is what sticks for your Sacramento Kings, 3 years of having a core together like that and 46, 48 wins, it's pretty good. That is not terrible. It's not great. It puts you middle of the pack in the Western Conference, playing as we saw last year. But, you kind of know who they are. And would you expect these guys to gel more? Do you expect more out of them right out of the gate because they've been together longer? It's a really interesting conversation. What are the moves that you can do with the roster that you have right now? I'm not talking about external moves. What can you do to shake things up? Change the combinations, maybe find something. One thing's for sure, I haven't mentioned this in a good month, 2 months. Regardless of the injuries, Mike Brown's rotation last year was not good. it was inconsistent at best. And when you see these teams, and I get matchups change on a nightly basis. However, when you see these teams that are in the Final Four in the NBA, that are making it to the NBA Finals, that are winning championships, their rotations usually don't change at all. In fact, other teams adjust their rotations to match up with them. So, how did the Kings get to being that type of team? And certainly, exploiting matchups is something the Kings can do better, targeting different things they like on the court. They did that excellent in the play-in game against the Warriors. They were thinking a step ahead. They weren't thinking about the play right then and there. They were thinking about the switch that they wanted to get to, and that was Draymond Green on De'Aaron Fox. So a lot of good stuff, but nothing new right now out of Sacktown. Ben, what's up, man? Happy to have you here. Monty, the chef, is cooking up something. Yep. Well, he had his vest on again today with Devin Carter. It must be hot in that kitchen. You're always wearing a vest. I mean, what is it right now? Over 100 degrees already, I bet. No bueno. Let's see. Bane hopping back in. No, I know. I wish. Thanks, Dennis. Let's go. Yeah, Patrick. Jonathan Isaac. Sea-Dog breaking in. 5-year, $84 million contract to return to Orlando. He had some bonuses tied to his last contract. Not a huge surprise, but he has had trouble staying on the court. So that is a decent chunk of change. Orlando is slowly trying to work their way into the conversation in the East. It'll be really interesting to see if they're able to maneuver any more as the season actually gets started and goes along because of what they're going to be facing next offseason with their payroll. Adam hopping back in. Hate the idea of this trade for the simple fact that Ainge is going to take us over the coals, or rake us over the coals for draft picks. It's going to be that way anyways, Adam. I mean, Kuzma, probably a little bit less, but Washington's going to be asking for the world. That's why that trade hasn't happened. Let's be real about it. I mean, it would have happened by now if they weren't asking for more than what Kyle Kuzma is worth. But if you go and try to make a move for anybody else, Brandon Ingram, yeah, the picks are going to be raking you over the coals too. So it's the way this NBA is. I guess what I'm trying to get you a little bit comfortable with is this might be the team you run it with. And I put out a tweet earlier today about Donovan Mitchell and his extension, and comparing it to what the Kings will be facing with De'Aaron Fox. When you're dealing with an all-star like that, it is not, you never, almost never, go into their final year of the contract without doing an extension. Or if you do, you know that player's being shopped. So is that decision closer rather than further right now on the horizon for the Kings? Lots to think about. Better like a stressful countdown. Interesting. Flores, what's up, buddy? Monty's not doing his job this year. See, I disagree. Devin Carter was a really good pick. Now, at the guard position, there's a lot of depth there. A lot of depth. I get Kevin Huerter might not be on the team. I get that could change, but a lot of depth at that position. Rate his performance in the last 2 years during the trade deadlines or the draft. Well, let's separate those, because that's where you have two different sides of the spectrum. I would say in the draft, Monty McNair, probably you got to give him an A-. How could you not give him an A-? In terms of trade deadlines, free agency, you get an A for Malik Monk, but outside of that, I gotta give him probably, I guess the trade deadline, that's when he did Sabonis. That's a hard one. C+, and that's including the Sabonis trade. Love the trade. It's worked out for both teams, but you have just missed two trade deadlines where I don't want to call it cheap talent. There was affordable talent to be had by the Kings, and you completely missed them. You make a couple of small moves that help the team financially, a couple of shots in the dark, stuff that's going to expire anyways, trade exceptions, and outside of that, yeah. And to make that worse, I always harp on this, but look at what the Lakers did. They made a couple tweaks. You get D'Angelo Russell. You get Rory Hachimura. Guess what? You make the Western Conference Finals. The Kings 2 years ago were a better team than the Los Angeles Lakers. They were. In fact, Rob Pelinka, there were calls for his job up until that trade deadline. And then they make the Western Conference Finals. This year, Dallas, the same story. They make the NBA Finals. I mean, it's nuts. So I'd love to have everybody call the show. We'll keep your comments here in a second. Already 275 that have checked in or are viewing right now the Kings Court. Appreciate you. Make sure you give us a thumbs up. We would really appreciate that. And definitely make sure that you are subscribed. Again, Grant's going to be back at 5 o'clock tonight for an open forum show, and then him and I will be together tonight at 8 p.m. That'll be a lot of fun. We get to Corn Dog to kick off the day. After that, we're going to our man Connor. But Corn Dog, what's up, dude?
What's up, everybody? I'm exhausted. I was mowing the lawn right before the show, so
mowing the lawn, huh? I guess it's the best day to do it. Yeah, there you go.
Got to keep that grass down before the 4th of July.
Dude, you got to get your tan before the 4th of July. You got to be looking good around the pool, brother.
Good thing I don't have a pool.
Yeah, pools are expensive. So what's up, man? What you want to talk about?
So, yeah, me and C-Dog, we're kind of going at it in the chat a bit. But, yeah, we're both disappointed in what happened in the Copa America for men's U.S. soccer. It was a disappointing exit. We didn't get out of the group stage. It was not fun. I mean, first of all, we put ourselves in a bad spot by not taking care of business with Panama, by Tim Weah getting that early red card in the game. We lose the Panama game we should have won. We don't even get the tie. And then we have to, go in and beat an Uruguay team that, was the best in our group. And we're also dependent on maybe Bolivia, the worst in the group, trying to tie Panama. Like, we put ourselves in such a bad position, and it was a disappointing exit for how talented this team was. I mean, we got out of the group stages in the World Cup, but we can't even get out of groups in Copa America. Are you kidding me?
But is the American team really that talented? When was the last time they made some real noise?
We've been on the rise. The World Cup, we made it out of groups,
barely,
and we were very young. A lot of our players play in the Serie A, the Italian league. A good chunk of our starters are playing over there for Juve or AC Milan. Very well-respected club teams, and and we were projected to at least make it out of groups. If we didn't make it out, we'd probably have lost to Colombia just because Colombia is better than us. But, we got to at least hit that, projections, especially because Copa was on our home turf. This was our turf. It was here in America. In 2 years, guess what's in America? The World Cup.
Yep. No, I hear you. Greg Berhalter, there's been some calls for his job already. I am not soccer guy, so... do you think that is fair? I know he had a little bit of controversy about a year ago that all got cleared up, but what are your thoughts on that? Corn, excuse me.
Honestly, a lot of this goes on Tim Weah, man. That early red card in that Panama game really just set us back terribly. Like, that was just, uncalled. It was an uncalled for move. That really set us back and put us in that terrible position to begin with. And, then we played a game versus Uruguay where, we did not play to where we needed to. And we let Uruguay get that last second goal. And they just did not have it in them. They just didn't look like they were ready for the expectations. Because going into that last World Cup, they didn't have the expectations that they have now. And now they have a little bit of expectations. They're on the home turf and they kind of choked.
That is actually fair. I'm not going to argue with you about the choking part of it, but I am going to do this. So I heard there was some type of debate last week, apparently. I don't know, but I'm catching up in the chat as I'm listening to your point. And I might well moderate this debate. We've got Corn Dog and we've got Sea Dog on right now. Apparently, you two were chopping it up about something in the chat. Let's hash it out, boys. Is it about soccer?
Yes, yes, it is.
What's up, guys?
Hey,
What's up, Sea Dog?
Yeah, so I just kind of wanted to give my stance, and I mean, I agree with him on basically everything he said. That the Tim Weah red card against Panama, it's a foolish decision, and it's something you can't do in such a big game. And it's something that I wouldn't be as mad if it wasn't something that happened before, because in World Cup qualifying a few years ago, Serginho Dest just got a straight red card for just yelling at the ref and just lost his temper. And now it's becoming a pattern. Like, how can you be so undisciplined in these huge games? And I think it has to fall on the manager at some point.
Interesting.
I agree. We've been trying to find, managers for a while. Jurgen Klinsmann was, ours for a little bit. I thought he did an okay job, with Clint Dempsey and them in the 2014 Cup. That was a pretty good cup for us, considering we were not as favorited as we were now in this Copa, like nowhere near. We held off a way better Belgian team, way better than we should have in that game. And this team, is honestly better than that team. And honestly, we could have won this. We could have won this group if we really, really think about it. Like, we could have. But instead we're third place in this group and we're twiddling our thumbs.
Yeah, it's terrible. I think we can talk about what could have been, what should have been. I mean, they played well against Uruguay, in my opinion, but we didn't get out of the group. And at the end of the day, it's a results-based sport, and that's just a disaster. On your home soil, you can't get out of a group with Bolivia and Panama in it. I know. If you take away the red card and stuff, what could have happened? But at the end of the day, they didn't put the ball in the net against Uruguay. Obviously, the officiating was the worst I've ever seen in my life. But
why
didn't
is that?
score.
Why is that? What was up with the officiating?
Oh, there was
the first time I've heard
goal for Uruguay that was reviewed, and they still let it slide. They still let their goal slide, even though it was offside.
Yeah, and they said from the beginning of the game that this ref, it was like his first big match assignment. He wasn't qualified for the job at all. And they came out with like a scandal from years ago where a team like gave him a jersey for their team or something. So then he like rigged the game for them. And this is the guy that's the head ref for a Copa America
it's a
game.
complete crap.
It makes no sense.
You would throw a game for a jersey? Are they picking from like a pool of groupies? What the hell?
That must have been a signed Ronaldo jersey or something.
Yeah, and it wasn't just that offsides goal. The entire game, he just missed so many things. Like, there were so many injuries and like fights and stuff, so that should be added on to stoppage time at the end of the half.
Yeah, no, there was like no stoppage time at all in the.
What was the stoppage? It was probably under like 6.
Yeah, they gave 5 and then 6, and it should have been at least 10 in the first half.
Wow.
Yeah, the first half had so much stoppage.
With the whole Euro thing going on right now, there's been arguments the other way that stoppage has been way too much, or the extra time has been too much.
Yeah, they changed it recently how they're trying to equate for the amount of time missed, like as close as they can. It used to be you wouldn't get more than like 3-4 minutes max, but now they're trying to make sure they get every time. So when the players are time wasting and faking injuries and stuff, that all gets made up. But it clearly wasn't in the game yesterday.
They need to institute a flopping rule in soccer. I've been saying it for years. It's the most frustrating thing to me because soccer is already a tough watch if you're one of those people that's into a fast-paced sport. If you understand the strategy, I get it. It's different. But when you see guys that get barely touched and it looks like they've got a compound fracture or worse, it drives me nuts.
Yeah, they are pretty flamboyant. A lot of the the soccer stars, Neymar, Ronaldo, they're some of the richest athletes in the world, and they're just so famous and popular, and they just they gotta have that attention on them. Oh, I got hurt. Oh, he hit me.
Yeah, and it's part of the strategy because, like, at the end of games now, when you're holding a 1-goal lead, almost every time a guy's just going to fall down and pretend he has cramps. But what is the ref going to do? He can't just not stop the game because what if it's actually a serious injury?
Right. I'm looking at some of the quotes from the USA goaltender. I think we need to do better amongst ourselves. And I mean, Berhalter, he's been the coach for 5 years. I'll defer to the both of you. Has this been a slow decline, or has this just been kind of a problem culture-wise the entire tenure of Berhalter's being coach?
I'll leave it to you, C-Dog, first.
Yeah, I think he's been a complete failure because although it's cool to beat Mexico like in every competition and like North American finals and stuff, he hasn't recorded a single win, I think, against like a top 20 team that is not Mexico. So he's not beating any European powers. I think his record is like 5 ties and 6 losses now or something. This team has all the talent in the world, and they've yet to have a signature win.
Yeah, I agree. This is, obviously, this is definitely a very big down step from, the 2 years ago from the World Cup to now. And we were home, so there's no, the time advantage, the whatever, clock, or time is wherever the last World Cup was, or whatever, in like Qatar or whatever, where the time difference is so huge. We have all the time. We know what we're U.S. players. This is your home turf. We know the time zones here and everything. So we should be having, the better sleep. We should be having, used to, all the food and stuff, all our customs, everything. So we should have a lot of advantage there. And this was, a disaster. And honestly, we got to improve for these next 2 years because I'm not going to have, majority of these games are played on U.S. soil, and we got to step up. I know Mexico, they had an upsetting, last couple of years as well too. They had a lot of management problems too with that last World Cup. They're trying to, bounce back as well because they want to be good for this World Cup too. And right now, out of nowhere, most people wouldn't expect this, but Canada's the best team in North America right now, and it's not close.
Well, okay, so I want to ask this. El Kumis brings up a point about getting rid of the coach and sending players to Europe. You guys said Clint Dempsey. I recognize that name, but there isn't really U.S. I mean, how many big names in the U.S. or big names overseas that play in the Premier League that are stars over there? It seems like Europe, the rest of the world, that's their niche. Like maybe soccer just isn't quite America's thing.
We got a lot of few up there, and like I said, Serie A. Weah's in Serie A. Weston McKennie is in Serie A. Christian Pulisic is in AC Milan in the Serie A. Like we got a good. Our best players are playing in the top Italian league.
Yeah, every player in the lineup for the first time ever is playing at a top 5 European club. They're not. Okay. It's not that they're like the best players on those teams, but they're all starters. And Anthony Robinson was the best left back in the Premier League, which is the best league in the world. So they're playing there, and they're playing against the elite competition there. And for some reason, the chemistry and everything just doesn't translate to when they play for their national team.
Interesting. We have a third dog in on conversation. Yeah. CT Dog says that USA basketball is going to suck too. We will see. All right, boys. Enough of the round ball that gets kicked around for 90 minutes. Let's talk Kings. Let's talk about the latest news about Lauri Markkanen. Let's talk about no moves yet in free agency. Where are you guys at with everything? You guys both know your Kings basketball. What's your guts telling you?
So my gut is that honestly, while the rest of the conference I feel got better, if we run, the only thing that really could keep us into a playoff spot is that I believe our division just got worse, though. Losing Clay, losing Paul George, I think our division got worse to where we might be able to just squeeze into a playoff spot just due to that.
Yeah, I think that I'm kind of in the middle between everyone saying that Monty's just sitting there and the free agents are getting signed and he's not making the move. I kind of see that side, but on the other hand, it's like we can't run it back. Like I know signing Alex Len to a 1-year, $3 million contract is obviously not good enough if this team wants to take the next step. And we keep seeing all these rumors around all these stars, Ingram,
Rumor
Markkanen,
after
Levine.
rumor, yeah.
But until anything actually happens, and if it happens, it's all just gossip to me.
Yeah, and here's the other thing that for some reasons, some Kings fans are equating not making moves in free agency to that basically translating or meaning a big move is coming, which it doesn't. I mean, maybe some of the guys out there are just not the right fit for what the Kings are trying to do. And I was kind of poking around at this at the beginning, and I've thought about it long and hard after the last show that we had yesterday. I think right now, no move might be the best move for this team, considering the options outside of a Lauri Markkanen.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, we don't exactly, we don't have an endless bag of Scrooge McDuck money, lying around with how the cap is. We only really have an MLE, and that's not going to, get us this world changing, star, unless, we make, another trade or something. So, and if, the only players we're interested in selling there's a reason why people aren't buying them. Is because Harrison Barnes and Kevin Huerter honestly hurt their stock a lot last season, in my opinion. And when that happens, guess what? People aren't going to be buying it. The stock goes down. People are selling. They're not buying.
Yeah, that's what I think too. Because when you have this package that Kings fans keep putting up of Barnes, Huerter, and a bag of chips, that's not going to attract like a big star for these other GMs that are trying to get better too. There's a reason that they're trying to move some of these star players, but they know that they're good and they're going to want good compensation, whether that's picks or Keegan Murray keeps being thrown around. And as much as I don't want to give up Keegan Murray, and I think he might be the most valuable asset we have right now, it's just we can't get these moves done if we're not willing to part with something valuable.
That is where I'm kind of at too. I think you hit the nail. Both of you are right, but I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. Like you see these other teams that are getting better, taking risks for the most part. At some point, the Kings are going to have to do that. You're going to have to take a risk. That's how we got to this point where we're having a conversation by trading Tyrese Halliburton. I know the jury's still out. I know I've got hardcores in Sacramento that are like, oh, it's the worst trade ever. Look, it worked out for both teams as of right now. Whatever, it broke the 16-year playoff drought. Sabonis has been here 2.5 years. He's led the league in rebounds 2 years in a row, and he's already considered maybe the best big man in Sacramento Kings history. So I do have to ask you one thing, though, C-Dog. You said a bag of chips. It depends on the kind of chips. If it's like a bag of those voodoo chips, that's a pretty enticing deal, dude.
Yeah, it definitely is. It depends if maybe the Flaming Hot Cheetos will get it done over the regular Cheetos.
Yeah, you got to go Flaming Hot. But to me, the voodoo chips are the best chips on the market. It's like a barbecue meets salt and vinegar. It's ridiculous. If you find them, buy them. Those things are good. Stock will always stay high in those.
Oh, I'm pretty. I love the Doritos nacho cheese, man. I love those.
Classic, huh? Yeah. I've seen some people do weird things with those Dorito nacho cheese chips. Granted, I think the taco was a really good idea, but I've been around a few people that dip those in ketchup, and I just can't get it. I don't understand it.
I love sometimes, putting them in a sandwich,
You got to do that. A tuna sandwich, you've got to put a chip in there somehow. You got to crunch it together and change the texture. Game on. Let's go.
I love nachos. They're very versatile.
Very versatile. This is true. The problem is where you work, the bag is too big. You can never go through that many chips until they're actually like stale or something. But
that's usually why you buy those big box of the 50 pack of the little individual.
Yeah, you can do that too. You can definitely do that too. Hey, boys, appreciate the calls.
Thanks for having me.
Man.
Of course, that is Corn Dog and Sea Dog. I love when both of them come on. In fact, Sea Dog, staple of If You Don't Like That at Times. He used to host the pregame shows last year with me. Here we go. Now we're going to start another food conversation. I actually do have a food conversation I want to bring up with 4th of July looming. I think it's an important conversation to have, quite frankly. Let's see if I can get this back to where I want it. There we go. Let's see. Zach talking about the MLE being around 9.5 for the Kings. Zach, put that in the chat. Or yeah, you already did. Perfect. There's no chance we get Lauri. I agree. I'd be surprised if the Kings get Ingram with only losing Barnes, Kevin, and a first. Yeah, you're not. It's going to be more than that. That's what I'm saying. Here's my take on it. With draft picks being as valuable as they are, and correct me if I'm wrong, the Kings do not have a first-round draft pick next year. As we sit, that is going to belong to the Atlanta Hawks. Next year is going to be a monster draft. So I think you've got to start, and I said it earlier with Donovan Mitchell, you've got to start looking at what this team is going to be in the next year, next 2 years, maybe 3 years. Sabonis is going to be here. I don't think anybody outside of a team that has a perfect fit for him is going to want to take him on unless you have the right pieces to surround him. Because one, he's that different of a player, but he's not as big as Jokic, and his salary is pretty chunk of change. He's going to be making $50 million a year by the time that thing's all said and done. And so my eyes turn to what the Kings are going to do at the guard position. And when I say the guard position, they just drafted Devin Carter. And I know we got rid of Davion Mitchell, but it's becoming more and more apparent the expectations of this young man are going to be to come in and play immediately. And so what happens if this team's humming along and things are going well and it's just as it is? Great. You're still in a position. You have the liquidity. I keep using that word, liquidity. You have the contracts that are movable. But any of these trades we're talking about, these are like, that's it trades. Like, you do these trades, let's go to Ingram, which Zach just brought up. Yeah, you're going to be giving away future draft capital with no guarantee that Ingram's going to come back past next year. You might have to give up some other pieces to get him that are on this roster right now, besides the two obvious ones. And I think the price is low on those two because of exactly what everybody, or the last two guys, Sea-Dog and Corn Dog, said. They've had kind of down years. But if you watch and you're a scout, you know that wasn't a Harrison Barnes thing. That was a system thing. You go and put Harrison Barnes in a different type of offense, he will be much more productive. I can't say the same thing about Kevin, although you would expect Kevin to bounce back, being that he's a shooter. His career tells you that. He's dealt with some hard times, dealt with a really bad injury at the end of this last year. So the question becomes, how is he going to bounce back? So inevitably, yes, you are going to have people that lowball you. If you are trying, think about this. If you need to get rid of something right away, what do? You price it to sell. And so other teams, these are not just trades, these are chess moves, because you're also looking at how you're going to make the other team better, especially if they're in the Western Conference. This isn't, hold hands and sing Kumbaya. This is professional basketball franchises vying for an NBA championship, and more importantly, owners vying for the money that comes along with an NBA championship. So if you're going to improve a rival or somebody in your conference, and yes, the Kings have been given a decent hand in the sense that LA, the Clippers are down compared to what they were last year. You look at the Lakers, Bronny, and I don't want to get into this big Bronny conversation. Don't want to do it right now. But Bronny appears to be on the active roster for the Lakers. The justification is that having somebody on a second round pay scale basically helps them financially. When was the last time Los Angeles gave a shit about finances? It is the biggest crock of BS I've heard in a long time. Just come out and say Bronny's going to be on the roster because LeBron wants him to be on the roster. He wants him to experience the NBA with him. He wants to be the first ever to be side by side with his son on an NBA court. That's what it is. It is not about money for the Lakers. It's not, look, they thought they were going to get Klay Thompson. No. They thought that they were going to get Dan Hurley. And that, as each day goes on, that to me seems more and more like a smokescreen. I don't think the Lakers ever wanted to bring Dan Hurley in. I think that was to extend the coaching hunt, to make sure the timeline lined up with JJ Redick. But for all intents and purposes, you could also make an argument, or almost make an argument, that the Lakers right now are more of a laughing stock in the Western Conference than the Kings. You really could. But getting back to the teams that are down in the West, Utah, okay, they should be getting better. They've got a war chest of draft picks. Walker Kessler, by the way, the Knicks seem to be eyeing him. Might be some interest in a trade there. Walker Kessler's a damn good piece. He has torched the Kings at times during his career. Not the last couple meetings, but the first two meetings at the end of the playoff season, the Jazz and Walker Kessler dominated inside. He had his way, but you got Alex Len now. So move on from that. What about Precious Achiuwa? What do you think about Precious? Patrick, help me out here. He's open to a Knicks return. Could the Kings play there? They need somebody at that position. I don't know, but I guess what I'm saying is looking at the other teams that got worse and looking at the Kings who really haven't gotten better, haven't gotten worse. If you take Devin Carter out of the equation at this point, because you don't know what he's going to be. In fact, we're going to listen to some audio here in a second from Devin Carter's press conference just a little bit earlier today here in Sacramento. But at least the Kings, you can look at them and say a lot of those errors, like I said yesterday, self-inflicted, correctable. You saw two different sides of the Kings that were completely different from the side of the Kings that you saw when they broke the playoff drought. So I think if the Kings stay pat, I get it, but you need to understand that something that figures into the Kings staying pat is De'Aaron Fox. That is a huge part of the conversation. It's not about the basketball improving or getting worse on the court. It is beginning to watch the sand tick through the hourglass on what the Kings and De'Aaron Fox are going to do, because that decision is closer than it is far away. Trust me right now. That decision has to be, the Kings have to be kicking that around when it comes to thinking about making moves for this year. And if you're looking at somebody, quite honestly, if I had to look at De'Aaron Fox or Keegan Murray and who I think I might be able to live more without, I think there's an argument for De'Aaron Fox, as crazy as that sounds. And I'm a De'Aaron Fox guy, not trying to hate on him, But he is a proven sample size. We've seen the best of him. We've seen him somewhere in the middle, and we've seen him struggle. But he has been here for what, 8 years now? So usually by the time you hit that 8-9 year mark, you're either the guy and you are the best of all time at that position in Sacramento or Kings franchise history, or there starts to become some footsteps behind you. And it might be time, Dr. Evil, when he's sitting there in the control room and he's like, oh, it's getting awkward in here. Oh, no. Henchman holding a wrench. You're good. You're good. Oh, no, Fran, you're good. Stay there. Oh, it's getting awkward, Scotty. You start to think that those little things are happening. This cat and mouse game. Does it figure any into the fact that he didn't sign an extension the year before? He didn't. And totally fine. I get that. You want to try to get the bag. You want to try to be all NBA. But let's be honest about it. Can De'Aaron Fox be an all NBA guy with this roster around him? What is the reality of that? You would have to almost argue if De'Aaron Fox with this roster around him right now was to be an all NBA guy, he would probably also be the MVP of the league. That is how special he would have to be. MC, thank you for updating those. By the way, 17 thumbs up. Appreciate it. 27 watching on YouTube. We've had 395 check in at some point today already. A lot of our viewers on X. So if you're watching on X, happy to have you here. We're talking Kings basketball. We're talking free agency. We talked some soccer. In a second, we're going to hear from the newest King, Devin Carter, and Monty McNair as well. John, appreciate it. Patrick hopping into the conversation. Personally, I hope the Knicks re-sign him to backup center Robinson for now due to the limited center market. Yeah, Patrick, apparently you guys kind of like Walker Kessler. Interesting. Also, Nick Richards is a name that has come up a few times as well. All right. Speaking of the Kings, speaking of Devin Carter, let's get a transition in here.
Baby!
He was introduced to the media today. Did you see the post going around where he was wearing number 55 online? That was interesting. He's going to be wearing number 22 for your Sacramento Kings. We're going to jump back and forth between the press conference, but we're going to send it to Monty McNair and some of the media that you will hear during this. You're going to hear Jason Anderson. You're going to hear Sean Cunningham. You might hear some Matt George. Make sure to go check out all of their work. As much as I love having you here on the Kings Court, I like to support the other people that are in this market doing good work, and all of them are certainly doing that. So let's kick it to Monty McNair and Devin Carter earlier today from the Golden One Center.
But welcome, guys. Thank you for being here. As I said the other night, Devin, just a winning player through his time in college, and especially this year, both ends of the court, plays hard every night, and we're looking forward to injecting that here to our team in Sacramento. So lastly, my wife said she approves of your number. She was also 22. So good choice. With that, I'll turn it over to Devin.
Appreciate it, Monty. Just super excited to be here in Sacramento. Like Monty said, used to live here, played AU ball, YBA. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but just super excited to be here. I think you're getting a winning player, older guy in the class, just somebody who wants to come in, work hard from day one, and do all the dirty work and able to win. So like I said, super excited to be here, and we'll take questions now. So.
Not all at once. Here we go.
It's time for me to get set up for therapy, and I use this room as my.
Sorry about that. We will work through that. That'll be up in just 1 second. Devin, about to take some questions from the media.
Devin, welcome to SAC. Just when you think about when you were here before, do you remember the school and what kind of neighborhoods and what it was like living here in Sacramento?
Yeah, we lived in Roseville, right? Yeah, it was Roseville, and then I went to Creekview. So, got a few buckets over there. Then, but no, it was great, though. Definitely had a great experience here.
And what's it like just this last, I don't know, 24 hours or so since arriving in Sacramento? I know it's hot, but just what's your overall impressions of just being here and having all this attention toward you?
Yeah. I mean, everybody here is super nice. I love it out here already. The weather is extreme hot, but now I'm super blessed to be here. I mean, all glory to God. This is just a great experience, and like I said, I'm just ready to get to work. So.
I mentioned this earlier, his composure, I know I can't play the video here, but definitely his composure, the moment's not too big for him, and don't take that for granted. To me, that is very important for a rookie. Now, I can't say I quite like his shirt. I don't think I could pull that off. Maybe MC could pull that off. He gets a lot of love here in the chat. Back to Devin Carter.
I see you wearing a shirt today. That's cool. I know things, passed, since the draft. You landed here just a couple of less than 36 hours ago. But have you spoke to any of the players, Sabonis, De'Aaron Fox, or anything like that? And what those discussions was like?
After the draft, I got a few texts from some players. Talked to Fox, talked to Malik. And then, just around the facility, talk to Keon, talk to Kobe. So just looking forward to building that relationship with them, spending time with them off the court. So on the court, we get a well-connected family. So
there's going to be a lot of questions, about your play. And we already know, you're a bona fide two-way player, coming up to this level. Is there anything that you concentrating on as working to make your game stronger that you have maybe some concerns about, or?
I think just at the next level in the NBA, for college especially, I didn't shoot mid ranges. My coach didn't let me shoot mid ranges, so he thought it just wasn't an efficient shot. But in the NBA, being a three-way scorer is super important. So I think just adding a consistent mid range game to my game is what I'm gonna, try to work on the most. Just first, obviously work on everything, but I think I'm gonna do that first.
So I think that's important. I want to stop that right there. And it's important for this reason. You know why De'Aaron Fox was the clutch player of the year a couple seasons ago? You know why? Because he got to the rim. He was a killer from the mid-range. He still is a killer from the mid-range when he wants to be. Floaters in the NBA, when you see guys shoot floaters, that is something you cannot teach. That is touch. That is softness. Anybody in this room, anybody listening that has ever played basketball, you know the difference between a ball that comes off hard and comes off soft on the rim. Go to a Kings game an hour before when the doors open and watch them go through their workout routines and watch how the ball barely falls through the hoop. That is softness. Now, getting back to the mid-range, last season, this was incredible to me, and this is why I still think, and I'm kind of sticking to my guns, that maybe what the Kings have now and not rocking the boat too much, while it's not the best thing in the world, could have been worse. You could have been without Malik Monk. It kind of makes sense with what you would have to give up. But there were times last season where the Kings were between the 4th and the 6th rated team in 2-point percentage in the NBA. And that was late into the season. I want to say they finished around 7th or 8th. But you know what the flip side of that coin looked like? They were 27th in the NBA at 2-point attempts. So the mid-range is what's missing from this team. And what is actually a positive is, there are guys on this team that can own the mid-range. That goes back to obviously owning the paint, which many nights the Kings did, despite being undersized at times and playing small ball. But Devin Carter, I don't expect him to come in and be an assassin from the mid-range. In fact, if you look at his college numbers, his three-point shot jumped almost 9 percentage points in between his sophomore and junior year. That is probably the reason why he skyrocketed up the draft charts, because he was able to shoot the three. And I don't know if that three ball is here to stay. Obviously, the NBA, it's a little bit of a longer shot. And here's the other thing about Devin's shot. This is why the mid-range has to become so important to him. He's very good at getting at the rim. So you've got to be able to throw that wrinkle in where you can put the Euro step into place. You can slam the brakes on and hit that 10-footer, that 8-footer. You can make the second defender step up and give you attention and then dish it off to a cutting Keegan Murray or Domantas Sabonis. Those are all those little wrinkles that seem to have been missing last year. So if Devin can help improve that percentage, I would rather see the focus on the mid-range than the three-point shot from him for this simple reason too. Have you seen his release? I know everybody's release is different. A lot of people talk about Sasha and the quickness of his release, much made out of Tyrese Halliburton and how he shoots the basketball. I'm not going to say that he has a hitch in his shot, but it's a little bit slower getting off. And if it's slower getting off when you're playing in the college game, it's times 10 when you get to the NBA game because you're dealing with players that are longer. You're dealing with players that are quicker, and it also takes away, or it makes hitting those three-point shots off the dribble that much more difficult. It's a wrinkle Keegan Murray has been trying to throw into a game, which has been really good. I want to see that continue into this season. But the mid-range is really where Devin can affect this team and help this team. So I hope a lot of the focus goes there as Summer League comes along. Also, his shoulder. His shoulder is going to be a point of concern. He's going to start getting that looked at here in the next week or so, according to them. He has a swagger. He definitely does. The other guy on our team has one, seems to be Monk. He does carry himself a little bit like that. I wouldn't say he's as loose as Monk, but then again, hey, he's only been in Sacramento a couple days. So let's go back to Devin and the press conference earlier today.
Hey guys, Jake Gaden from CBS 13. Monty, for you, you guys made a trade on that second day with the Raptors sending Davion and Sasha to there and your second round picks in exchange for Jalen McDaniels. Can you just take me through the thought process of making that trade and if there was any validity to Sasha specifically asking for a trade out of Sacramento?
Well, first, just want to say, we wish Davion and Sasha the best, and a lot of great moments, I think, for both of them here in Sacramento over the last year plus. But yeah, just I think better opportunity for them and for us to add somebody in Jalen with some size and length up the front line. So a little bit of rebalance on the roster, and hopefully those guys will continue to do well in Toronto.
Hey, Devin, Matt George, ABC 10. Welcome to Sacramento. Sorry about the heat. Watching your film, watching you play last year and over the last couple of years on the defensive end, it seems like you take that not just seriously, but you almost take a certain amount of pride on that end of the floor. And I'm curious where that comes from and how much you enjoy stopping versus scoring almost.
Yeah, came from that guy right there. I mean, I just throughout my whole life, I saw how he got on the court, which was by his defense. Everybody just, it kind of gets to be repetitive when you're walking around basketball games and everybody's like, your dad was a dog on the defensive end and stuff like that. So just, trying my best to mimic that. And, at the end of the day, if you're not scoring, if you're not doing anything else, you can at least guard and take that personally. So, you want to give the coach a reason to play you. And every coach wants somebody who plays defense. So, like you said, I just pride myself on that end. And then, but for me personally, I think that my defense turns into offense as well. So, if I get a stop, a block, or a steal, I'm able to turn that into, good momentum on the offensive end. And
where have we heard that? Turning defense into offense. I swear somebody was talking about that just yesterday. Oh, that's right. We were talking about that here on the King's Court. Sorry. That was it's a complete crap statement to make. That was kind of I'm sorry I did that. I don't know why I did that. I don't usually do that. My bad. Give me my demerits. That was a bad moment for Ryan in Sacktown. But no, defense into offense is exactly what the Kings are going to be looking to do, in my opinion, this season. Mike Brown is going to put the guys on the court that can play in transition. It is secret sauce. I mean it. The secret sauce to what the Kings are going to be able to do to win. It's what they did last season. I said if they win, especially the last 25 games, I really, and you guys know, I track every single shot. I do my own shot charts. I have my own little notations. It's how I make sense of the game within the game. But the times the Kings went on their runs last year, it was not one of those things where Harrison Barnes hits 9 3-pointers to come out and start the game. It was when they did it defensively. And here, this is the other thing too. One of the things that put a hiccup in the Kings' get-up in transition last year was Domantas Sabonis. Think about it for a second. Domas is great at running the floor. He should be. He's a little bit smaller than some of the other bigs. He's physical as hell. He is a nightmare guy to guard. You will feel him the next day. Now, guys like that, it's good for them to bring the ball up once in a while. It seemed more times than not, especially the first half of last season, Domas was running the fast break a lot more than you saw Foxy running it, a lot more than you saw Monk running it. And what happened was it made the spacing all out of whack. We talked to Jerry Reynolds about it, and he's the one that actually pointed that part out. It takes away your passing lanes, or at least good passing lanes, because you have the guards outrunning the big men. Usually you want the big man trying to keep pace with the guards. And so when the Kings made that correction, and partially that was due to injury, but you saw guys like Keon come in, you saw guys like Davion come in, you saw them running the break a little bit more. And obviously Malik, De'Aaron, those guys are the best at it on this roster. But Devin Carter certainly seems like, if you watch some of his college film, that he has the attributes to be one of those guys that plays perfectly into the special teams, or what I call the basketball special teams, which is the transition game, the points off of turnovers, getting to the free throw line, also getting into the penalty, getting the other team into foul trouble. Rare was the day that the Kings had the other opposing team in foul trouble. And usually, if they were in foul trouble, the Kings were in foul trouble too, because the refs were way too whistle happy at times. That changed the second half of the season. But again, if the Kings can get that going, I really like it. They talk a little bit more about Devin's shoulder. I think you can't put too much weight. It's impossible to put enough weight into what comes with being the child of somebody that's played in the NBA. I could run down all the little things, but you've watched your dad. Think about maybe some of you, what your parents did for a living has affected what you did for a living, whether in a good way or in a bad way. Maybe you wanted to follow in their shoes. Maybe you said, I want no part of that. But you likely saw a routine, right? Well, for somebody like Devin, his dad being in the NBA, both as a player, and remember, he was an assistant coach for 1 year with the Sacramento Kings. Credit to Grant for remembering that last week on one of our shows. He knows what to expect. He understands the grind. He doesn't just understand what it takes to be in the NBA. He understands what it takes and what you have to do to remain in the NBA, be relevant in the NBA. His dad played more than 10 years in the NBA. And yes, his dad was a grinder. You look at their body styles, they're actually very similar. It's really interesting. They both have the long arms, the hair, much different. Devin's got way better hair than Pops, but very similar styles of playing. So being ready for that grind also, he knows what to expect. You know, going from college, you play 35, 40 games, you throw the conference tournament, and then if you make it to the NCAAs, maybe you're playing upwards of 45, 50 in a season. You're playing 82 in the NBA, and 41 are guaranteed to be on the road. That is a lot of traveling. Believe me, with a college team, there's a lot of balance that goes on there. And you're usually traveling, and that's changing now because of everything going on with the conferences and the Pac-12 now being the Pac-2 to basically not being the Pac anything anymore. By the way, if you're paying extra for the Pac-12 network, you might want to call your television provider and tell them to cut it off. Tell them, don't charge me for that.
It's a complete
because it's no more. The Pac-12 network is gone. Shout out to my boy Brian Weber. B-Web, man. You did a good job for the Pac-12 network. If this gets back to you, B-Web, there's ever a Pac-12 network Hall of Fame, you belong in it, dude. Didn't matter what it was, B-Web. You hit softball games, you hit tennis matches, golf, B-Web, you nailed it. But getting back to the grind with college, getting back to the travel, now teams are going to be traveling much further distances. But in Devin's case at Providence, yeah, you probably traveled a little more than a team like a San Diego State that I was around. But even just the regional travel for us with the Mountain West, that was a production. I mean, you had to miss class. There were tests on the road. You had study halls. There was a lot that goes into it. So now you take the classroom out of it, but the study doesn't change. The study is now basketball full time. And so that's what I want to see. If there was one thing that I would have asked Devin Carter today in that press conference, it would have been this. What is the part of your game this summer that you want to improve to become a better NBA player? That's the question that I wanted to hear. Because, yeah, we know you can play defense. We know that you have an NBA pedigree with your dad being somebody that played in the league over 10 years. But, you know, these guys are hearing how much about how good they are, how great it's going to be in this new city. You're getting sold the city, which is like, why are you trying to sell the city? They're going to be here anyways. They're signing a contract, whether they like the city or not. Whether you can't control the heat. You get my point. But for Devin and for the guys coming in, I want it to be a challenge. I want to know what you're going to do immediately to impact things, not just, you know, how do you fit in? Where's your strong suit? So a lot there to chew on with Devin Carter, but I think one thing's for sure coming out of this, everybody, it's that at this point, Devin Carter is going to be a big part of what this Kings team looks like this coming year, in case or unless another big move is made, which by all accounts, I am becoming in that court. I am, speaking of the courts, we are here on the Kings court. I am sliding my ball towards the side of the court that's stand pat at this point. And if you stand pat, then you're probably not doing much at the trade deadline either, unless it is a major move, because the names that we're talking about right now, Brandon Ingram, he would only have half a season, less than half a season on his contract. So anyways, it's an interesting conversation. We have had a fun day here on the Kings Court. Devin Carter, again, introduced to the Sacramento media. Unfortunately, Jerry Reynolds was not able to join us today. He will be back next Tuesday. Everything is all in well with him. Just a life happens. Something came up, but he will be back. Grant and I will be back tonight at 8 o'clock. That's going to be a lot of fun. I hope all of you can join us for that. But before that, Grant's going to be back at 5 for an open forum show. Come on, ask him anything you want. You can talk NFL, you can talk baseball, whatever it may be. One interesting note really quick from the River Cats game before we wrap up. Last night, I think I told you that they were almost no-hit, which was interesting, especially because it would have been by the pitching staff. They pulled the pitcher that had the no-hitter through 6. But challenging plays, that is now in baseball, in the minor leagues. That has been implemented. And to give you an example, if you are a batter, or you are the catcher and you think that a call was missed at the plate, whether it's a strike, a ball, whatever it may be, you can just tap your helmet like that, and each team gets 4 challenges. If you get the challenge correct, then you don't lose that challenge. But if it is not overturned, you lose the challenge. But they're using the technology that tennis uses, basically, where it goes to the screen everybody in the stadium can see it. You can see whether the ball was in or it was out. I think it's only a matter of time. And I know there's going to be some hurdles to get there between the players union, obviously the old timers when it comes to baseball. They, Derek, you want to see Grant with Devin's hair? That would be interesting. Somebody go do a Photoshop. That would be super interesting. But getting back to the point with baseball and replay, you're going to have the old timers that probably are not going to like automation coming into the game. You're going to have the umpires union that may have something to say about it, but it did not slow the game down. I'll say that. I thought it was interesting, and it took it a step further for me. The NBA is flirting with the idea of also implementing similar technology for balls that may be inbounds, out of bounds. Obviously, you could probably do the same when it comes to goaltending, but that is something I think the NBA should really consider and continue exploring, because the more and more that time and gambling goes on, the more scrutiny there is going to be on these officials. And it's a job that, quite frankly, nobody wants to do. And I think at the end of the day, whether you're watching the game as a fan or you're watching the game as somebody that has money on it, you want it to be right. They've got to get it right. And the worst thing that can happen, we saw happen too many times last year in the NBA, where calls were obviously wrong, and even though the plays were being reviewed, there was nothing that could be done about it, because you have these two different ways of officiating. So back in the day, how do I kind of explain this the right way? There were these and anybody that's played basketball, somebody that's older, 50, 60, you're going to get what I'm saying. Back in the day, before camera technology was what it is now, the referees at times, and you see it actually now still, where they wait to call fouls before they wait to see if the ball goes in, right? But there were other plays back in the day where maybe it was a foul and the ball ended up going off of you, but because you were fouled, the refs would give you the call back, or they give you the ball back instead of calling the foul. And so there's like these little things like that that would always happen. But now with replay and with the cameras, you can't do that anymore. We saw that happen in Sacramento against the Knicks. Malik Monk was shoved and the ball went off of him, and the Knicks challenged the play and they got the play overturned because the ref called it the old school way, which is how the game's been officiated forever. But then you go to the camera and it's clearly off Malik. So not only do you have an arena that's watching in real time, seeing their players shoved out of bounds, which can't be corrected, right? But then you see the ball go off of him and a team's allowed to challenge that and get that call reversed with a challenge. So you lose both ways there while the referees are still trying to, because whether you want to admit it or not, there's these codes around the way that you officiate. There's these unwritten rules around every single sport. There's one every single sport. Every sport has those unwritten rules. And you got to kind of throw those out the window now. And so with the younger group of referees coming up, I think it's the perfect time to try to integrate new technology. And I talk to, anytime I'm down in Stockton, Mr. Finch can back me up here because he went to a game with me, went to a playoff game, actually, courtside. I'm talking to the refs. I'm talking to all them just about these things, trying to gather information, asking about calls in the NBA. And so their opinions are very interesting. And so a lot of the feedback that I get from them shapes how I, kind of talk about these things and shapes my opinion. So good stuff there. We've covered many a topics. Free agency continues. The Kings remain actively looking at this point, trying to improve the roster. As we heard, Devin Carter introduced as your newest Sacramento King. Number 22 is what he will be wearing. Carl, thank you. Hope all is well in Manila, my man. Thanks for checking in. Really appreciate it. He's back, baby.
I'm back, baby.
Love it. Hope you're having a great day, Carl. Thanks for checking in. So we will be back, or Grant will be back at 5 o'clock tonight. Come back for his open forum show. Please make sure that you are subscribed. You can find our entire library content up there. Can't wait for next Thursday or next Tuesday. Jerry Reynolds will be back. By the way, we will be off on 4th of July. There will be no show Thursday, but Friday, as I said, Irman will be coming on. Check this out. Imran will be coming on from True Sports and Collectibles to talk all things baseball cards, collectibles, memorabilia. In fact, you have seen him in his shop. He does a show on the weekends on 1140. So Imran will be here. Bring your questions. We'll talk about the business of it. That will be our Friday show. And then tomorrow's show, we'll probably have a little of a 4th of July theme, what's the best side dish to bring to a 4th of July party? What's the dish that you stay away from? Like, anytime I see the spinach dip, I don't know. Unless I know that dip's homemade, I'm probably not touching it. Same goes for like casseroles around Thanksgiving. So we'll get into some 4th of July fun tomorrow. Also, hopefully we'll have some news to report about the Kings. Maybe they make a move, maybe they don't. But either way, Grant's back with you here at 5 o'clock. I will be back with Grant tonight at 8 o'clock. We'll be taking phone calls. We will be talking Kings, free agency, the Western Conference, whether you like it or not. Right now, your Sacramento Kings in the bottom third of the West on paper. However, out of that group that they are in, I think they probably have the most upside right now. A lot of things that are correctable. And remember this, defense turning into offense. It's going to be a new motto here in Sacramento. It's going to be the new spray for Mike Brown, as I am predicting. But make it a great rest of the day. Be back in just a little bit over an hour and a half for Grant. Holy moly, Jim Bob Bully, 445 checked in at some point today on the Kings Court. I appreciate every single one of you. We will be back later today. Join us at 8 p.m. Go Kings! Light the damn beam. Stay away from Levine. Court is dismissed.